Okay, so welcome to week one in CIT95. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to cover these topics, but I'm actually going to do it from a how it works perspective. That way maybe it'll help drive home what you need to do, because this step that you're about to do is really going to be taking and setting up your GitHub to allow you to do the daily or the days and then the learn together work. Okay. But just a word in this week. So let me just give you this overview as of this point in time. So if you're one of those students that want to, because ultimately by the end of this week or Thursday, okay, October 14th, you're going to need to have set up your own local environment. And if you want to jump and do this first and then come back and do day 1 and 2, that's fine. But if you're new, completely new, you've never done any kind of setup like this, I definitely would recommend just getting through day 1 and day 2 from the Udemy course, okay, and then going through this. But normally I'm pretty, and you kind of saw me talk about this in the next steps, I'm pretty diligent about wanting you to work through my class in a particular way. But then this week I'm giving some flexibility because I happen to know there are students in this class that have had my other class or they've had some experience. So I just want to say that you can choose how you work through this class, but either way you do it, you have to do this first step. So what I was just talking about is right here. Okay. So whichever path you choose, you need to do this part next. And let me again just show you from the student's perspective what happens. So when you completed, let me just switch to the student view. I was kind of doing this before, right? And you're going to have a question here. You're going to submit. I'm actually haven't recorded that one yet, and there's going to be something more. But in this next one, oh, I like the little next. Oh, not next attempt, Rio. Come on, let's just hit next here. I'm gonna leave this one. Not a good example. Sorry. On this particular one, when you start it, this is the next step. This is when you give me your, and I'm going to give FCC. This is actually a GitHub username that I have. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and submit that. So now what I'm going to do, you've been looking at what's called the student view, and I'm going to leave the student view because now I'm going to see it as the instructor. Okay. Because I'm going to show you what happens. Again, I was talking about the timing here. So what happens here is I get a notice that this work has been submitted. I come in here, I grab the username, okay, and then I go over to GitHub and I go over to 93. I add people. I then add the GitHub username, okay, as a member. Again, you don't see all that. Let me tell you what you do see though. I'm actually logged in over here in my that email that I used, and I see in my Gmail account. Again, you don't have not again, you don't have to use Gmail. You can use whatever you want. But in this case, I happen to see that I was invited, that my username was invited into this GitHub repo, and I can go ahead and click here. But let me just tell you, if you happen not to see that, okay, if you happen not to see that in my instruction in Canvas, let me go ahead and I love it. I'm like, where am I at? Let me go back here. In my instruction for this item, if for some reason you didn't see that, once you've been invited, you can click here and it will also take you to there and it'll show you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do this in my other window because that's where I'm logged in as that user. Okay. And the only reason I'm showing this is that I have had occasion where some students do not see. Let me do it this way. You try to make things easy. 95. Well, what will happen here is you'll see if you go to the link I provided, you'll see that you were invited. You can view the info and you can join. Okay, so once you've done that piece, that then is this part where you've at least joined the organization, and now you're going to create 2 repos. Okay, one repo will be for you to submit your day each day, right? We're doing, I think, 25 to a little bit more days inside the Udemy course. And this will be where you'll do the private is only between you and the public is between you and everybody else in the class. So you're going to create these two repos, and I will walk you through it right now. So let me move over to that other, okay? Just to make this a little less because there's a lot going on here. So what you want to do here is you want to come over here once you're in, and you can already see this is the repo that you will learn more about this in a minute. But I'm logged in as my student account. I'm going to do new. I'm going to call it Rio, and then not W for my last name, but S for student. And I'm going to do dash private. Let's do the private one first. Okay. And then I'm going to say Rio student private repo. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, and you can tell here there's the two kind of repos. I'm going to go ahead and add a README file. I'm going to go ahead and add a getignore file. I'm going to actually, it doesn't matter which of these because we'll end up changing this for VS Code. But for some reason, I'm going to scroll through and go ahead and do Visual Studio, which is crazy because it's so long. I'm not going to choose a license. Okay, so that's the setup. Boom. Great. Creating the repo. Very good. Right. So now let me go create the other repo because there's two repos. We've created the first one, which is Rio, and this is S. This is and you can tell. And by the way, when you log in, you won't be able to see this one, but you'll be able to see the next one I do. Rio S dash, okay, public. Public you can because if you choose it right, Rio student public repo. Okay. Again, add a README file, add a getignore. I don't know why I want to do this every time. I should just, can I? Oh, good. If I type V, it does filter the list, create the repo. All right. So now you have two. Okay. You will have, right, you can see now in this case, you can see my regular public one, but because this is logged in as a student account, I can see both of these, but you can clearly see one is private and one is public. Okay, so you've done that step. So you have now completed this part right here. Okay. And so this really, and by this point, you've stepped through, hopefully you've gotten the 100 days course, right? And the reason I released early, I talked about this. I will actually record this probably very soon as the Hello World. The idea here is to reset up your account so you get it cheaper. But again, I've already talked about this. I don't want to repeat it. So here's what you're going to do now. Now is where you get to make a choice, right? I'm going to come back here. You're going to end up hitting a reply for this attendance to show you've done it. But I just want to say, now that you've done this part, you can either move into day one, right? Complete day one, complete day two, and then set up your local dev environment and do the last step on the learn together. So you can see that from the weeks, the way it's laid out. And if you look over at the Udemy course, you can see day one and day two. And I have more specific instruction when you get into those items about how you want to complete that. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. At this point, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, right? So in this post, right, tell us like a little bit, about you and why you're taking this class, and then which path, let's put it that way, are you taking to start week one? Right. So the question is, are you doing are you going to complete day one and day two? And this is with repl.it. Okay. Or are you going to set up local dev environment? Just put this and then do day one and day two. Okay. So, and I was thinking about this too. And by the way, just hit when you hit post, and you'll be able to move on to the next item. And I'll just put that in there so it's there to give you a visual along with this. So here's what I'm going to say. Even though I've set these due dates, I'm a little more flexible. Like if you have completed this first, to do this last item, you actually need to complete day 1 and 2. So if you do this part, right, and you'll be able to, you're telling me here, right, I will let these due dates slip 1 day forward if that's the case. But again, right, because what you're doing here, if you choose to set up the dev environment, part of my what's next, actually, how's what, I think I posted that wrong. Should be now what, not how what. That's funny. Okay, you can't really complete this until you've done day 1 and day 2. So, but I think it should be pretty fast too. I don't think it should be, especially if you've chosen to do the dev environment first, because that probably means you have had some experience. So try to stay on track with these. But if I see you submitting the next day and I've seen that you've replied here that you're going to do that, I'm a little more understanding around that. Okay. All right. Hopefully this gives you everything you need to know. Hopefully you know what to do here. If you have set up this part and you have the repos, you've joined the organization, you have the repos set up, you are ready to start into day 1. Okay. Hope this helped you understand.